Hey,
Well, hello.
welcome everybody. Sorry we're a little late. It's all my fault. But we are here. We're ready to go. Andy, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I've been working really hard on a certain Halloween show. Yeah, so
Ooh,
it's been
wow.
pretty exciting. Nearly done, and um, yeah, very excited about it. And you can read into that what you will.
Yeah, a certain Halloween show. Hopefully, wherever it is you're working on and wherever it's going, it happens. Of course, we know these are very unprecedented times. We got a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world.
Well, how locked down are you still feeling?
It's kind of like I'm just following the data. So we definitely are having a surge in cases, reported cases in Orlando. We went from having around 40 to 60 a day to now 400, 250, something like that. There was a chart I was looking at. So that's not good for those of you that are watching and paying attention. So we're definitely in a lockdown state. Like I've been to 2 restaurants indoors. And that's after I did it. We decided to go back into lockdown because we could see the trends were not good. So although I have seen that death rates are down or death cases are down overall, which is positive news, but hopefully that's not going to just trail in a little bit.
Yeah, what that says to me is that just there's a lot more testing. If the death rates are going down, that just means that a lot more people are discovering that they have it than before. So
yeah, true.
But yeah, I mean, I haven't really been to since I got back from Vegas. I've been under quarantine myself.
Yeah.
We're coming up on 14 days on Thursday, and neither Nathan and I show any symptoms at all. And Nathan got tested yesterday. I'm going to get tested tomorrow just to be safe.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Do you have any symptoms, or are you just taking a precaution? No.
Just precaution, just protecting our friends and family.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, and there is some theme park news. Parks are starting to reopen. Disney today, for Walt Disney World, started taking reservations for people who already had hotel guests, or hotel reservations. And so, as we all know, maybe not know, but Disney is not taking any reservations for hotels, any new reservations. They locked everything they had, and they're focusing on their new guests or their old guests that they had, making sure that they're all accommodated for all the people who had decided their vacation. And so the reservation system went live, and not really sure what's going to happen in regards to when annual passes are allowed to make reservations, which is going to happen in a couple of days, all that kind of good stuff. So we'll see.
I think that's Friday. I think annual pass holders can reserve starting Friday.
Yeah. And then, the preview day, and I'm going to keep watching the data. And if the data goes down and it looks good, then, maybe I'll go to a park. Plenty of people are going to Universal. I say plenty. I mean, it's nowhere near the capacity that we would have had in a normal summer. We did have Volcano Bay. They shut down for capacity, and people in the park, at least on Twitter, were reporting that the park was basically walk-on lines. And so they're doing a lot to reduce the wait, do social distancing and all that. So we'll see, but we're also, I'm hearing rumors and things about people getting positive at Disney Springs, like workers and people working at Universal. It is inevitable that it's going to happen just because of how many cases there are. It's going to happen that people are going to taste positive, and whether or not that becomes national news, that's a whole different story. But unless you have any news, I'd love to bring on our guest. What do you think? Anything else you want to talk about?
I think we should get right to it. I'm really excited for everybody to meet her.
All right. No further ado, hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Natalie Nielsen. Hello.
Hi, I'm Natalie Nielsen. Pronouns she, they.
Well, it's great to have you on, and I've been looking forward to bringing you on for a long time now. So, why don't you start by, telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, like I said, I'm Natalie Nielsen. My pronouns are she and they, and I mainly identify as a non-binary person. Let's see. I have always had a passion for theme parks. I mean, that's why I'm on here, and that's why I have the job that I do. It's always been a thing that I've always been interested in. and to the point to like where, can I share a screen? Is that something I can do?
You can.
Fantastic.
Should be able to
I'm
click
gonna-
the button.
I'm going to do this. It's going to be great. So I talked about this when we discussed just like my notes beforehand, and I mentioned that I designed like a Cartoon Network theme park.
Yeah.
And there it is.
Oh, wow.
This is not like the best example. I had so many more drawings, but basically,
How old were you?
I mean, this was probably like this was like middle school. This was like early middle school. Yeah, like you have like a Ed, Ed and Eddie neighborhood at Townsville. You have a Dexter's Lab with like a house with a big warehouse thing behind it, and Courage the Cowardly Dog Land. I mean, I had it all figured out, and that's the only one I have.
Pretty elaborate
So,
and accurate and detailed for like an 11 or 12-year-old.
I mean, I knew theme parks and I knew maps, and I mean, I just copied what I saw. And then
great.
I just have one more to share about just how early my love of this. I designed this chicken run ride.
Oh.
I mean, this is all I drew was this was like this render, but it's, oh God, come on, there we go. But it basically, I think if I remember correctly, I designed it to replace like the maze that was at the beginning of the in Universal Studios Hollywood. Like I imagined it to be like a maze there. I don't know, but I just drew this in my bed one night.
How fun!
And yeah,
I love hearing stories of people in our industry. It's like we all sort of started out as like very discerning consumers of themed entertainment, and then developed ideas of our own, and then just followed the dream.
Absolutely,
all the way to its logical conclusion to our day-to-day lives that we get to are very so lucky to have.
Oh yeah, no, it's a dream, and it's so much fun for me to go back and look at these drawings and remembering that it was just a thing that I just thought about literally all the time.
Yeah,
it kind of like makes sense as to why, I don't know, I'm good at what I do. Like I have the intuition, I have the thoughts, and I'm like in general like, all right, yeah, I guess that makes sense, and it makes sense because I drew chicken run rides in my bed like 20, 30 years ago. Or not 30 years ago, but like 20 years ago.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I love seeing that.
Yeah, so I did that.
And where were you growing up?
Of course, sorry. So I grew up in Seattle, like a city outside of Seattle called Renton, Washington, about 30 minutes, so in the suburbs. And the thing about growing up in Seattle and growing up in the Northwest in general is that the idea of like working for theme parks never really like seemed possible. I mean, like, I watched Disney Channel and I saw like the Imagineer, that show. So, and I read the Disney Adventures magazine, and I was online as early as I could, and, looking at all these websites. So I knew that it was a thing. I just didn't really know, other than Imagineering, that there was like, an end, and it felt so distant, and I felt like I just never could get there. So what ended up happening, along with all the other art interests that I had of drawing and sculpting things and making props and all sorts of things and drawing, I found filmmaking. And filmmaking was like my main focus for, like, I'd say from the beginning of high school, literally until I'd say like 20, oh my God, May, until like 2014, maybe right around when I moved to LA. Honestly, it's kind of funny because like I only really liked filmmaking. I was drawn to it because it was so much easier to realize an idea, because you could just point a camera at it than like having to like draw it out and like really, and there's always the disparity between like what you want and what it ends up as. And it was such a, I don't know, a cleaner point of connection between those two things. And it was great. And I made a lot of movies with my friends in my neighborhood and like high school friends. And it was something that I did all the way through college. And it was in college I studied creative writing, but then on the side, I mainly made movies with all of my friends. And it was a lot of fun. I learned so much because like, and that's the thing, like my education mainly is in filmmaking. Like that's where that like, filmmaking is like where I've learned about like, the creative process and like storytelling and everything like that, which, makes sense because theme parks have their origins in filmmaking. But what am I saying? The filmmaking. Yeah, it was a great time. It was just so much fun, and we had really no guidance there. So it was really like everyone was the same age, and we're all just learning from each other. It was a wonderful, collaborative environment. I love this picture I wanted to share of me in college. Yeah, this was me in the middle, along with all of my other friends, and we were making this short for this comedy sketch show, and it was just such a wonderful collaborative time. It was just a lot of fun. This was I was making a movie about a mime, and this one actually won me an award, along with oh, I went too far, excuse me.
You came to LA.
What?
You came to LA for film school.
Yeah, I know, I'm gonna get to that. May's giving me tips. This is another one that I made. Anyway, so I made movies. I'm sorry. I get a little bogged down in the details.
No problem. One thing that oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, so one thing that you were saying earlier that kind of reminded me is that when you're a theme park person and you're a kid, you really have very limited amount of outlets, because you can't just pick up your iPhone or your video camera and make a theme park attraction. Like you can do that with a filmmaker or a TV show or sketch comedy. And so it's so interesting about how, like, I did the same thing. I scribbled down little drawings and we just made a little model, built Kinects and built roller coasters and Legos and all that.
Oh yeah.
yeah, exactly. So like that's our outlet. And
Roller Coaster Tycoon. That was one I want to mention. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, and especially when they'd have theming and the expansion packs and I remember the original Disney coaster, the one where you had like the crazy old people and the young people and them commenting on your stuff, and it was like a MS DOS, like in the early 90s.
Yeah,
I'm not sure who was alive then, but
no one was alive.
Growing up, what's that, Andy?
No one was alive then.
So you're a filmmaker, and yep. You had it looked like you had a pretty established career. You were winning awards. Mm-hmm. Then what happened?
Well, I decided one winter to visit LA to look at going to film schools, like more seriously. I was very education minded. I had a hard time moving past the idea that I didn't have enough to just start. I mean, even though I was just doing it, it's a whole thing I got over later. But basically, I moved to LA, or I visited LA, and while I was there, I met Andy through my now fiance May, and it's such a convoluted, like, happenstance, whole thing. But ultimately, what happened was, I was at dinner with May and a bunch of other filmmaker friends. And I started just kind of spouting off like theme park terminology, like queue and third gate and things. And May was like, "Do you like theme parks?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then she's, basically what ended up happening is that same night I met Andy, and we met up at the bar in Hollywood, Harvard and Stone, and we immediately hit it off. It was amazing because, like, for me at that point, theme parks were such a internal thing. It was a love that I like share with everyone else, but I had no one to connect to with it. It was never like a situation where like we could both geek out about a thing. It was like me literally like building Roller Coaster Tycoon, and all of my friends just like sitting behind me watching, being interested, but just watching me do it, So, I remember talking about like the Lumiere character and the Bell meet and greet and all sorts of things like that. And it was amazing. I just having a field day. And I remember at that bar, like there was a lull in the conversation, and I was like I was sitting at the bar and I was looking down and I was like thinking to myself, it's like, you have to ask. And I was like, turned to Annie, and I'm like, so like, how does one get a job in themed entertainment? And, he answered like, well, I'll introduce you to the people I know, and then you kind of take it from there. And I was just like, because, basically at that moment, my life completely took like a crazy right turn. I was filmmaking. I was going to be a director, cinematographer, whatever. But suddenly this like thing that I always wanted to do, but it never felt possible, fell in my lap.
I think at the time I was my studio was at a building called Studio 3030, which was Ty Granaroli's building for a long time, and I had been there for, I think I just moved in there in 2012, and I think one of the things I said, yeah, like I'll introduce people, then like literally just come hang out at my office, and
Yeah.
someone will put you to work.
Guess what? That happened.
And it's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
You know, you were there one day building because I had just so recently moved in, and then you came down sort of permanently, and
Definitely.
then I said, you know, I had you build some of the fiberglass acoustic panels for my studio, and literally while you were building it, Ted King met you, and you guys hit it off because you're both from the Seattle area,
Yeah.
and then, you know, I knew that you would be useful to them in some way or another with your filmmaking background and editing and After Effects and graphic design and all that kind of stuff that you can do so well. And I knew that there was a need for that on some of the stuff that we were working on, the Hershey stuff in
Yeah.
particular.
Yeah, and like really my first like small gig was editing like the what was it, the Thea nomination video for the 4D show for Hershey.
Yeah, it was oh yeah, that's like, I can't remember what it's called. That factory
chocolate. Oh gosh. Oh, that's so long. It was like the Hershey chocolate mystery factory show. I don't know, something like that.
If you're watching, what was it called? The show. Let's see if you can type in the comments. Anyway, moving on.
Anyway, so basically, what ended up happening? Yeah, I hung out at Annie's office after moving, like in May 2014, and then like 4 months later, I got a job as a project coordinator at Granaroli Design and Entertainment. So I got to work with Ty Granaroli and Ted King, and I worked with Andy and Jason and Prudence Depew. And my first project as project coordinator was the Warner Brothers Abu Dhabi Park.
Oh, the Great Chocolate Mystery. That's what you were right.
Oh, the Hershey's Great Chocolate Mystery in 4D. It is in 4D.
And that was with the actors too. It was live actors rendered in CG in real time. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, the Henson like digital puppeteering rig. They like have like an actual live digital puppeteer. I actually got to see it the last time I was in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and I got to like play with it. It's so cool. It is so cool. But I digress. So my first project was the Warner Brothers Abu Dhabi Park. I did like, you know, project coordinating things, and I was basically just learning about just the industry, because, you know, like you draw a lot of things and you follow the blogs, but it doesn't really prepare you for what it means to like create an art director book and like, you know, struggle with InDesign and stuff like that and like Excel. But what was so wonderful was like, even when it was really difficult, like it was the first time that I felt like I was doing something that felt right. You know, like I was doing like the right thing, even if it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. You know, I was still helping make a theme park, which just blew my mind, and it still honestly blows my mind to this day. But yeah, so that, and then, you know, I worked on most of what I've worked on actually has been like attractions in Hershey, Pennsylvania, like all like the dark ride refresh we did at the Hershey Chocolate World, and then there was like a tasting class show. I am doing a disservice to these shows. They were very good. I just don't remember like the names and things. Point of it is, I worked a lot in Hershey. I know a lot about how chocolate is made, and I did not anticipate that. But it's nice.
It's a fringe benefit.
It's a fringe benefit. I know that you have to ferment the beans and then you put them in a bag. Like there's a different, you know. Don't chew it when you're tasting it. You have to let it melt on the tongue, and that way you get the full aroma. You know, it's that whole thing. So basically, yeah. So that so after 3 years, I left GDE, and I learned so much, and it was such a wonderful experience. And I decided, I felt like I wanted, you know, I was in this position of being a project coordinator, which is pretty standard, you know, entry level for someone that doesn't have a more specialized skill. But I wanted to try to like move myself more towards like strictly creative. And I know that is hard, but I really wanted to try for it. And I was really lucky because I actually had an opportunity to work with Adam Bizark on like a really small little writing project, like in December of like 2017, I think. And it was such a great experience. Like I pitched my little like write-up I did to like the client and all this, and I was incredibly nervous, but it was great. It was great. You know, it was so great. So then in 2018, I then started working at On Track Themes, where I'm working now as a project manager. And while I've been while I've worked there, which is currently now here, I'm using a lot of words. I'm confusing, whatever. All right. We did a refresh to the Hershey Story Museum. And then we just like did that install like last March. And that was really fulfilling, like kind of being on site, doing the install. First time I've ever been able to do that. And that was, while a small project, was still like, it was just kind of, it was good to have that experience, and like so satisfying to like see the guests like experience it for the first time and all of that. Like, oh my God, it's been wonderful. And yeah, I've just continued to work with like a fantastic team on like really unique projects that are like happening all over the world. And that's been my career. It's been incredibly magical.
Wow, that was only a year ago, the Hershey family thing that we did.
Oh yeah.
It feels like 5 years ago now.
Oh, absolutely. It feels like we did that like last century at least, right? At least 2 decades ago. It's crazy.
It really does feel like a long time ago, but it was a year ago. Wow. That was a really fun project. I think I don't want to get you in any trouble, but I feel like your role on that was a lot more than just project manager. You were producing that media.
Oh no, absolutely. I was, yeah. So
the producer.
Yes, I absolutely was. I for the first time I was actually able to like produce animation media for all the little kiosks we were making for the museum. I'm going to be just super broad about it because I can get super specific. I don't want to. Basically, we had to produce media in-house at On Track Themes, which was the first time that we had done that. So we had to like figure out the whole process. And we did fantastic. It honestly turned out so well. Like Andy did a great job with the sound design and sound mixing. And we found like a great voice actor for the narrator. And I found this great animator down in up in Longview, Washington, which was like fantastic. Never met her, only over Messenger, but she did a great job. And yeah, I definitely I was an animation producer on that, which was hectic, but really fun.
That's great. It's so cute. Everything is really fun and cute.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy Hershey Park. I haven't been there in maybe half a decade, but it's such a great regional park. Like it's so much.
Oh yeah. So
you can have a lot of fun in there, relax, and there's in the local neighborhoods. I'm sure there's that same Chili's that I went to that one time. Whatever, even Applebee's. But no, it's a really fun park. A lot of old coasters and a kind of a great blend of the old and the new, and they keep refreshing things. And
absolutely,
it's a great park.
It is, and I think what's wonderful is just the experience of being able to bring like these very thoughtfully created experiences and attractions to like a regional park. Like where one wouldn't expect to see that kind of a thing and that kind of thought. Not to like put down the people that work on regional parks, but like I don't know. It's nice. It's nice to be able to give to that. And
like when Sally started putting in the Justice League rides into Six Flags parks, it was just like, wow, it's a huge step.
Yeah,
exactly.
Shout out to Rich Hill. Hey, Rich.
Great.
Yeah, so that's me with my career.
And you what do you broadly, if you can talk about what kind of things you're working on now post Hershey?
Well, let's see.
Like what role, what's your current role on what type of project?
So right now mainly what I have been doing is managing lighting design, broadly speaking, which has been interesting because I didn't think of myself as a lighting designer, but what we have found is that we've had to internally, kind of flesh out the wonderful renders that our creative team has been making and give them practicality and like interpret the intent. And that has been really great. Like I actually just had a meeting today where we were just flipping through renders and like talking about like, well, what would that be? A flood, an inset can light. Like we have definitely a set of tools we keep going back to. But the fact that like at the beginning of this, I didn't really know how to do that. And now like we have a really good workflow. So that's been mainly what I have been doing. And like the whole team has been fantastic on that because not necessarily a normal thing for us, but we rise to the challenge.
Well, that seems to be a running theme with everybody we have on the show. Like last week with Bill, talking about wearing different hats on every different project. Every project is different, and you're constantly learning new facets of production in the industry that you may not have known before. And it just, every show you do, every project broadens your view and scope of the industry and design.
So
Absolutely.
We talked about the past. Now that you're present, where, if you're willing to share, like, where do you, before we dive into the other stuff, the most important
other stuff.
Where do you see, where's your career headed? Where's Natalie going to be in a few years, or what's your career trajectory that you envision for yourself?
I want to be a creative director.
Mm-hmm.
I want to lead a team in a creative sense. Like, I feel like I have the wherewithal to understand what it takes to make emotionally resonant, engaging, fun attractions, whether that's in a museum exhibit or a roller coaster or anything. I have been training to do this my entire life. And theme parks mean a lot to me. And I know, like, I struggle when I say that because it feels like everyone says that and everyone wants to do that. It's like, filmmaking, you want to be the director. I did not want to be the director. Directing sucks. But to be a creative director, that's what I want to do. And I believe that I will be. I think I would be a good one. And I think I'm a good leader.
Well, in my experience, you definitely are. I mean, working on the Hershey stuff with you last year, I thought you did an excellent job. I mean, as creative producer / director, I have no doubt that you'll achieve that sooner rather than later.
I appreciate that.
One thing that's interesting is, like, just like Andy was saying, is that lines start getting so blurred depending on the scale of a project and what you're doing and what skills that you're doing. And so, I'm project manager, I'm a producer, but I'm really doing this, and I'm doing creative writing, or I'm doing that and this. And so it's so interesting, like, how many different skill set, which is really great about our industry, depending on if, like, especially if you're at a smaller firm, is that, you take your hat off, put a different one on, wear it differently, put it to the side, and it's really great to work in an industry where you're able to do that, and everything's not so rigid, and the things that you do vary so much based on what point you are on a project. So it's just such a unique industry. So I believe in you, and one thing that I will tell you, Natalie, is that somebody, I was having a dinner with somebody, and they said, "What do you want to do with your career?" And I hemmed and hawed and did a not as eloquent version of what you just did. And they said, "Look, if you want to be a creative director, you just got to start saying it and say you're going to be it, and then it's going to happen." So
that's what I learned too. I mean, in a lot of ways, I have learned to self-actualize. You have to own what you want, because if you don't, goals are good.
Yeah.
Basically, it's goals are good.
So, one thing that we know has been going on in the world is we have a pretty momentous thing that happened last week, or I believe, last week we had the court case ruling from the Supreme Court that LGBT people could no longer be fired for who they are, who they love, or how they, present themselves. And it was like pretty shocking. I mean, it was amazing to have that happen. It was stunning to see it happen. And I think there's so many people that live in these bubbles that don't realize that in a lot of states you could get fired for that. And it is so humongous that ended. And so it's also Pride Month. Woo! And next later this week, like the 26th, is the 5-year anniversary of the Prop 8 case being thrown out that they legalized marriage between anybody you want to marry, which is absolutely fantastic. So there's a lot to be thankful for during these crazy times, and which kind of brings to your story and diversity, inclusion, and LGBT. We'd like to open the floor and have an open and honest conversation and see what you have to say.
I can definitely be open and honest. Yeah, okay. I mean, I think before I really get into it, I think I need to make it clear that I can only speak for my specific experience being openly trans in both my life and in this industry. I'm very fortunate because I have a very unique, rare, oh God, I have a very rare and unique situation where I have had one person in my life not want to do any, not accept me. And that's okay because I don't like them. So that's okay. Like they weren't really in my life anyway, but like my parents, my brother, my fiance, my work, everyone in my work, it's been wonderful. And it has made my transition like so much smoother, I think. I mean, because yeah, just having the support, like being able to know that the only thing I have to deal with at this point is just the voice in my head telling me that I shouldn't do the things that I want to do, because I have everyone around me telling me and giving me their support. So like that's been wonderful. And speaking to my experience in the industry, like I said, it's been wonderful. It's been welcoming, for the most part. I've had 2 or 3 situations that weren't like super aggressively bad, but they were, I would say microaggression is how I would classify it as. Because I mean, I don't know, like once you, like for me, traverse and exit the gender binary and decide to just not live by those rules, you tend to ruffle some feathers. So it elicits reactions, and just getting stares in public and at like IAPA, it is a reality that I live with all the time. And it's exhausting. It was especially exhausting at the beginning because I wasn't used to it. I wasn't used to, what I classified it as a social friction. Once I left the privileged bubble of being perceived as a straight heterosexual straight white, cisgender man, and I left that, the smooth, buttery, glide through life, ground to a halt, and I'm just kind of like moving like this, very secure and happy inside, but like moving through the grocery store and going to like movie theaters and walking on the sidewalk, God forbid, and walking across crosswalks where you're like right there in front of everybody. Anyone could possibly maybe run you over. I mean, like it's the things you go through in your head, that you have to kind of deal with all the time. It's okay because you're like, you accept yourself and like that's worth it, but it's not great. Yeah.
Yeah, well then no.
Well, that sounds I mean, I'm so glad to hear you say all those things, and I'm so pleased that so many people, most people in our industry are so accepting, of people at face value. Definitely. Because people come from all walks of life and experiences and types and genders and queer and non-binary and all those things. And I mean, I think a lot of people that I've seen interact with you just treat you just like a normal person, and I think that that's just what I've seen, and it makes me happy to see. And like you said, it's some social frictions, I'm sure. I can't even imagine, but when people stare and gawk and whatever, it's like, oh, they'll get over it,
or they'll kill me. That's kind of where I'm at. Like that's the problem, is that they'll get over it or they'll take care of it. It's like, and that's the fear that I live with. And it's like, yeah, I don't mean to get so extreme, but that's like the reality of the situation. And I mean, I'm privileged too, like being a white trans person, black trans people, especially black trans women of color, they are exponentially at like a greater disadvantage just in society. I think the average life expectancy of a trans woman of color is 36,
Oh my God.
which is tragic, and it's, for me anyway, I take that and I try to like, it's fuel for like trying to spread awareness like I'm doing here, trying to like make it not a thing that needs to be, I don't know where I was going, but basically, yeah, it's not great, it's horrible.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I think what I'm trying to get at is the challenge of being trans is that I'm constantly experiencing, even me, who is very privileged, I'm constantly experiencing the difficulty of other people not seeing me as I truly am, because it's like, I feel like it's not just about the fact that I like, speaking in ways that are broad. I was a man and now I have long hair and I wear makeup and I have a different name and pronouns and I wear dresses and that's it. And it's like, I understand that for other people, that's all they have to go off of, but it's like so much more than that. It's like, it's like I'm talking about like the constant battle between who I know I am on a fundamental level and what others see me as on an external level. And then there's like that incredible tension between there. And honestly, like that tension I feel every time someone messes up with pronouns or like uses like, no one's used my dead name, thankfully. Like it's been enough time, but like pronouns are still difficult for people. And for me, like I don't say that people mess up my pronouns intentionally, because I know they don't. Because again, I'm very privileged and I have a lot of people that support me, but there's still slip ups and there's still like this disparity, like for me, I feel like there wouldn't be an issue if they actually internalized who I am and they didn't just adjust their perception. It's a very subtle thing, and it's a subtle thing that I had to do myself. It wasn't such like transitioning is not just, again, putting on a dress and wearing makeup and changing your name and then you're done, because like what I had to overcome is the internalized transphobia and transmisogyny that like denies me the reality of being able to just look in the mirror all the time and see myself. Because ultimately, we shouldn't have to like I feel like even I'm looking at myself through the biases, the gender biases, and all of these things. Like I shouldn't really. The discomfort I have with having a deep voice, with having a very angular face and a strong, brow and everything. And I'm tall, although I love that I'm tall. But like that could be something that's very dysphoric for trans people. And I feel like it's only been after like really coming to terms with why I had these thoughts about myself and like what was giving me this influence about like the transphobia and the transmisogyny. Because again, like I wanted to be a trans person. I am a trans person, not even one. I have been my entire life. And it was society that told me that no, you can't. You can't, because they're jokes, or they're not to be taken seriously. They're disgusting and they don't belong. They literally don't belong. And, we're basically shown as being subhuman in media. And I'm not recently, but like the longevity before that, like I always kind of like say like, there's this much time. Oh God, there's this much time when we've been taught that trans people like do not deserve our respect. And there's been like this much time where suddenly their visibility is stronger and like the acceptance is like more widespread, which again is wonderful. But there's a lot of history that we have to overcome in that, and like how potent that transphobia and transmisogyny, internalized transphobia and transmisogyny, affects our ability to see other people as they are and accept, not even accept them. It's such a fine line. It's so messy. It's, because it's not a matter of like of character. Someone can be a good person. Someone can think that they are being supportive, and then they do things that are, but then there's still like a lot of internal baggage that has to be unpacked and investigated and discarded to, I think, be like a true ally to trans people, and at least to myself. That's what I've seen anyway. That's what I feel.
Well, I think that's great. I mean, I could tell you, you talk about internalization, from my perspective and externally to your experience, seeing those pictures of you from 8 or 10 years ago, and knowing you at that time, I have completely forgotten that person.
Yeah,
completely.
I have too.
and when we were talking about our meeting at Harvard and Stone, I was remembering back to it. I remember it clearly. I was not remembering that person. I was remembering you as you are now.
Sure.
And so I felt like, wow, like my internalization is almost complete.
That's good. That's good. I mean, honestly, hearing that is wonderful, because like truly, like that's the reality of the situation. It's interesting for me because like there's a lot of my previous identity that I didn't discard. Like I was very thankful, and I was very I was lucky to have parents that, although like I wasn't in a place to really even understand like who I was in my identity, but my parents supported all of my interests. So like my interest in art, my abhorrence of sports, and like, I did what I wanted to do, and my parents were unquestionably supportive. And so like, it's been wonderful that really the only thing that I've had to like add to me or uncover about me has been my gender, which turns out pretty big.
Natalie, I have a question. Would you be willing to share your journey from when you were a child, or when you maybe just your journey and to become from where you were to today?
Yeah,
I think that'd be great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
In regards to your gender, I think that'd be really compelling to hear, so people learn more about your experience, because
Definitely.
It's already been incredible already.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So basically, in general, let's start at the beginning. So I can remember like at a very early age having an interest in what would be classified as like feminine things, girly things, I mean, I remember like I wanted my mom to buy me lip smackers after seeing some girls have it at like daycare, and it's just chapstick. But like, I don't know, like just that connection was like, oh, I want chapstick, I want lip smackers, Or like, I remember like, this is such a distinct memory. I was in daycare, and there's like a dress up area, and I asked one of the like the teachers to like put me in a dress, and I remember like I felt so happy, and I was just so it's very blurry, the memory, but I remember being very happy, and I remember my mom came to pick me up, and she didn't react negatively, but there wasn't an affirmation, I don't remember there being like, yeah, great, you look great, there was kind of an emptiness there. And I'm just being honest. I know my mom's watching, and I'm not mad at you. I'm just saying that's my experience. So like, and I don't blame her, because honestly, oh, thanks, Stacy. So like, honestly, no one knew. I didn't know what to do. All I knew is I liked to wear a dress, and that those are like really early memories. In general, I mean, I was just like a very uptight kid. I was very anxious. I felt very uncomfortable in a lot of situations, and I think I attribute that just to my unwillingness to like open myself up to exploring my gender identity. Because really, it wasn't until like middle school where things were like really. Oh no, wait, hold on. No, so like there is one thing. This doesn't really have anything to do with like my journey. It kind of does. So like in 5th grade, I was chubby, which was not great, because then you got teased. I got teased incessantly. I was just, oh my God, it was like the worst thing, and like really the best thing that could have happened to me. But I had like boobs because I was fat. And so they teased me about it. And like that put like a complex inside of me all throughout high school and college where I was so like self-conscious about that area of my body. I was so like, oh my God. And now I don't care. I just love that. And now I'm like happy about it. But it wasn't until I'd say middle school when like puberty hit and I started to just have to like come to terms with like a lot of things changing in my body. I didn't have a lot of dysphoria, but the main thing that I was dealing with was like homosexual thoughts. You know, you're taught, no, girls, you're a boy, girls. And to have those kinds of like thoughts, you know, of being attracted to men or whatever, through me, like, I wanted nothing more to be like, I wanted nothing more than to be completely accepted. You know, to be different is to be excluded and rejected, and like this happening here, oh my God. And like I did so much. I remember I talked to my parents about it and we dealt with it the best way we could, but you know, that again, there wasn't like the affirmation that it was okay. And like again, I don't say that my parents are bad people because of that, but I say like society was, you know, gave us the thoughts that you can't be this. And I think that gave them the thought that like, well, let's not do anything yet. Let's just, you know, be calm about it. So like, you know, I didn't really deal with that. I just pushed it down way, way, way down. And I just kind of moved on with my life until college. And, you know, this is from middle school to college. So 12th, you know, I was a senior and I had just broken up with a girlfriend at the time. And suddenly I like all of those thoughts just came flooding back. And I was like, what the, you know, and it wasn't even a situation where like my attraction to women, my attraction to men or whatever were like coexisting. It was like women went away and it was just men. And I was just looking at men and I was just like, no, what happened? What happened? Like, it's so funny. I just think back to that because the pain I was in, because I mean, I'm making fun of it because I can now, but the pain I was in because I thought I took care of it by pushing it down, and it didn't. It came back stronger than ever, you know. And so I remember I dealt with that like for like a couple weeks until a very pivotal moment. Like I'd say the linchpin in my transition really started at the point where I just like I was riding my bike home from college to my apartment, and I was thinking out loud. No one was around. I was at night. I was just like, all right. You've done everything. You pushed these away. You try to get away from these things and you can't. What if you just accepted them? What would happen? Maybe they'll go away. Maybe it'll equal out, but you should just accept them. And then I was just like, okay, yeah, I will. And then once I did that, everything was fine. In fact, like all of my attractions just kind of leveled out. And it was just like this very calm space in my body, in my mind. And from that point, I graduated, and I knew, you know, from all of my experience in my experimentation when I was a kid with dresses and lip smackers and nail polish and all these things, like I knew it's like, okay, I need to start doing this because it was something I thought about all the time. I remember when I was growing up, the main thought I had, my two main concerns were like, oh my God, I'm gay, or I'm transgender or transsexual or something because I like to do these things, or like I thought my house was haunted, so I like would either be afraid of the ghost or I would be afraid of being gay or trans. Like my brain is a wonderful, horrible place to be sometimes, I will say. But point of it is, from college on, it's been this slow buildup of expression. And it started with nail polish on my toes, which I hid because I could do it and I could put my shoes in it. And then, eventually it went to my fingernails. And then that was like a huge deal. The idea of riding the bus and have to hold onto a pole and like my fingernails are exposed, and like that feeling of vulnerability like overtook me, but I pushed through it and I owned it, and it was wonderful. And it just kind of kept building until I moved to LA. And really, once I moved was when it all started to, I started to open up, and whether that's because I was just in a new environment and I had like this feeling of freedom in every way. I had no expectations because nobody knew me before, really, not really. So, it was, I think I started, I actually, it's so funny. Like I started to experiment a lot more, I'd say from 2014 and all the way till 2017, right when our current president was elected. I remember the morning after the election, I was laying in bed, I was looking at the phone, and I was just kind of like, it all washed over me. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I remember I told myself, it's like, okay, you weren't going to transition when everything was great. Like, well, it's not going to be great now, so you might as well do it. Like, you need to own it, because if we're going to do it when it's good, you got to just get it over with. Not get it over with. Do it. Be strong and do it. And that was November. So then the next January, February, that was when I went to the LGBT center in Hollywood, and I started doing hormone replacement therapy. And that was huge, because, you live with a body that you're used to. And then over the course of these 3 years, it's a very familiar, but very different body. And in that time, I changed my name logically, and I changed, or what did I say? Legally, and my pronouns, which is like very expensive process, but that happened. And yeah, and then it's just clothes and things, and dealing with my internalized transphobia, which is very, very unexpected and not something to tell you about.
You don't want to talk about what you just said?
Oh, I mean, basically it is undoing years of training, subliminal training through the media and through socialized, expectations. To be a woman is to be like the worst thing you could be. So if you are a man, why on earth would you do that? Why do we laugh at men in dresses? I'm not saying that you do, but as a culture, why in the majority of our history, why is that funny? And that's in there, that's in my head. So I have to be like, okay, let's take that and shine it in the light and really expose what that means. Is that me, or is that something that someone told me? And then in that moment, I get to decide what's my truth. Having that introspection is that's the key for freedom, because it allows you to really decide what's right for you. I have the opinion that nothing matters. Nothing really does. Everything is constructs. Everything doesn't mean anything. We tell lies for a living, beautiful lies, wonderfully sculpted rock works of lies, but they're important because we have given them importance. So why couldn't we decide what is truly important for us? And to me, it's important to undo these toxic thought processes. It's not easy, and it's painful because it's separating yourself from what you've been told that you kind of live in, consciously and subconsciously. And again, it's messy and it's hard, and it's questioning. Sometimes it's hard because it feels like it's your thoughts, and that's how deep it is. It feels like I'm talking about conspiracy theories or something, but I mean, this is the deal. I'm real. What I'm doing is this is my truth. So it kind of gave me the perspective to question those things and honestly everything.
Yeah.
And really be able to give importance to what I want.
I mean, having you in my life as a dear friend and watching you go through this and it has enriched my life tremendously and caused me to rethink about all those things that you just mentioned, and the things that are ingrained in you, from Bugs Bunny and drag to Some Like It Hot, and every movie, Tootsie, and all the social and cultural mores that we've been taught, like you were saying, and then to really know someone personally who's challenging all of that, really, huh?
Oh, sorry, I read the caption.
It really just really caused a paradigm shift in my own thinking about people and life, and like you said, how everything is a construct, gender is a construct, your sense of self and how you present yourself to the world is a construct, and Yeah, it's been really, your journey has enriched my life immeasurably.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. And honestly, like that's how I see my role in my life. Like I'm not some like, I let me not talk myself down. I think what's been wonderful is that my journey has shined a light in, like, especially my family's experience of these sorts of things. I know my dad has gone through a lot personally, trying to I don't want to speak for him, but from my understanding, it's like his religious beliefs conflict with my identity, and he loves me very much. And so there's a conflict there. That's that tension I'm talking about. Like there's like the truth that and there's what you're told. And I'm not telling my dad to like renounce his religion, but like it's those moments where true growth can happen because there's a truth and you believe in it and you know it. But there's this other thing, and it's like that's the moment you can really do a lot of good work for yourself around you and personally. And it's been, I feel like it's just such a gift that this is my life, because I was such a closed off person. I didn't like to hang out with people. I was very wary. I was teased a lot. So like to be given the opportunity to look inward and connect through this my own personal experience, through the art that I do with theme parks and just through my own experience and talking about it like this. It's been it's an incredible privilege. It's a gift. I'm really thankful for it. It's incredibly difficult. It sucks. This world was not built for me and other people like me and similar to me. Our visibility is so important, but like our visibility in people's hearts is absent. And that's, I think, the disparity that needs to be bridged, the understanding that like you can be a good person, but you can have real bad ideas in you.
Right.
Well, I think that the empathy that you experience and the empathy that you draw out in other people through your own experience, I think is one of the things that makes you such a successful creative person.
Thank
because you can internalize your own feelings, and you can also externalize them and make other people feel what you want them to feel.
Definitely.
And
Yeah.
to guide that through a technical process is the real trick.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And this,
Oh, sorry.
One of the questions here we got from that one.
As a global industry in themed entertainment, have there been issues with trans employees in countries that are less maybe progressive? Conversely, have there been any better experiences abroad? I'm not sure if you feel equipped to answer this, or that's that, but feel free to comment as you wish.
So I don't have any personal experience. I have yet to travel abroad, even like, as a civilian. I don't like, I haven't done it in the workplace. I haven't really done it as like, just like a regular person. I will say airports suck as a trans person. Security, no good. But more to the question, I have no idea. All I can really speak of is just my own ideas about cultures, especially in the Middle East, that I know and that probably wouldn't be as accepting. Again, I don't want to draw conclusions from anything I haven't experienced, but I do feel like it might be a conflict that we're going to come upon, because the more we progress, the more people will feel comfortable coming out. I think it's interesting, because I think a lot of people don't realize how many trans people they actually do know, but they just the people don't feel comfortable and they don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And I think the more people will feel safe, the more people are going to come out. And I think at a certain point, we are going to have to confront the conflict of a very, of a market that very likely will not be welcoming to potentially a lot of our, people.
So I have a question, and maybe a closing thought, if you may. We know that the suicide rates for trans youth is off the charts and horrible and very sad all around. Let's just say we had one person who is struggling right now out there. Would you be comfortable and maybe sharing any words that you have that based off your own experience that might be that you could send to them?
Yeah. I know it feels like really heavy right now. And I know it feels like no one would ever accept you. You know, I understand the pain, and I understand the tension that you hold in your body and you hold in public spaces. And I mean, I just want to say it's worth it. You know, it's worth letting go and accepting who you are for the beauty that you will ultimately find. And you know, the losing things is part of life. And what's wonderful that I have learned that I want to pass on is that, you know, letting go is, I think, one of the hardest things we can do as human beings. And, you know, losing family members suck. I don't know that experience, but I know people that have. But it's like losing something opens up the space to gain potentially so much more than you had before. And just have faith that it will happen for you. It will be hard and it will be painful, but you know, nothing worth doing is easy. You know, it's a pretty stereotypical statement, but it's true. And you just have to have faith in yourself and trust yourself. You know yourself better than anyone else, and you have to hold strong to that.
I remember you had a sign in your office at 3030. Everything you want is on the other side of fear.
Oh boy, yeah. Yeah, that's it.
It still speaks to me, you know. I mean,
yeah.
It's very, very a wonderful sentiment.
Yeah. Well, Natalie, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. You know, I think it's clear that you could have come on this show and talked about any topic you wanted, and we hope that you come back on our show and do that exact thing. But
I'd love to.
Yeah, can, should, and will. But I know that this was very powerful for people to hear, and honestly uplifting to hear that, at least in your personal experience, that this industry has been welcoming, and you've, you know, as far as you know, you haven't really experienced anything too drastic, which I think is very encouraging for folks. You know, so that's that. I think that was really great to hear, at least your personal story.
Yeah.
So come on anytime. You know how to get a hold of Andy and myself.
Mm-hmm.
We'll end the show. Natalie, please don't log off though, okay? But we are going to end the show.
Absolutely. I have one more thing. Just one more thing. So I wanted to plug a book because this book helped me immensely. And honestly, I want everyone who's watching this to go buy this book. It's Super Late Bloomer by Julia Kay, who's a very good friend of mine, one of my best friends. She is a trans woman. And what this is basically she did daily comics documenting her transition, and it's incredibly raw and funny and honest. And this what she did was show me that what I was experiencing was not unique. This was my first step towards a community that I never thought I would be a part of, and that has been so welcoming. And I think for cisgender people, this is a wonderful primer into understanding the life of a trans person, the everyday life. Obviously, this is early transition, but this is the pain, I would say, that I think is the key to the empathy that we all need to work towards for trans people and for everyone. That's it.
Fantastic. No, that's great. We'll update our links so that people can see Super Late Bloomer, link to Amazon, so there's no question about it. That's fantastic. Well, Andy, any closing thoughts?
I just want to thank Natalie again for coming on and sharing her story and all your deeply personal stories. I think that it was just wonderful for me to hear all of that as well, you know, and I'm sure all of the people out there really connected with that as well. And if they didn't, then they'll learn too.
There's always time.
You know, Natalie, it's so interesting. You know, I feel like I gained a friend today. I know you just met me, but I feel like I gained a friend. So I have to tell you my life story next time we talk.
I would love that.
You know, you can even it out.
Sounds great.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll be back next week, Monday, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Who knows what we're going to talk about, but it's going to be hard to top this.
That's for sure.
Bye, everybody.